Hi developers, welcome back to my channel. In this video, we are going to continue the Pragmatic drag and drop series, and that brings the drag and drop experience into your React application. Last time we stopped at, we have basically built up a very basic version of the drag and drop for a board application, which you can at the moment drag the card around. But there are a few features we haven't implemented yet. One of them is there is no clear indicator when you drag the card over another one or over the column. That's something we need to fix. And then another one is more about a feature that is when you move into a new column that doesn't have any card in it, you cannot drop basically. And in this video, we are going to use the monitoring API, which is the third most important API from the Pragmatic drag and drop library. And we are going to use that to implement all the 4 features of the board application. So let's get started. So last time in our application, in the code, we have almost put all the logic in a card that has a draggable which initializes the drag operation, and the drop target that will accepting the drop whenever you moved the another card into the current one, it will accepting the drop. So firstly, let's implement the drop indicator. So that means currently when we about to drop, there is no clear indicator for the target to accept the drop. Obviously, we need another state to indicate such change. So let's firstly introduce a variable in a React component. Let's call it about to drop. Set about to drop for drop. And we will use a boolean it will be false by default. We will use this flag at runtime, and when you about to drop, we can set that to true, and when you move away, we can set it to false. So firstly, we were going to, because it's happened at the drop stage, so we will use this as a we'll make changes in this place. So there are a few other callbacks along with onDrop, which is drag enter. That means when you drag into the area, and it will be called. We can start from here, on drag enter. We can set the about to drop as true. And similarly, there is another one called onDrag leave. We can do, if it's moving away, we can set it to false. And obviously, once it's actually moved or dropped, we need to set it to false as well. With this new flag, we can put some background color change or something to indicate that I'm accepting your drop. And then we can use this flag called about to drop. So let's test it out with some simple indicators. Let's say can use the background gradient as an indicator, I guess, from 200 to 300. Sorry, let me do this. And now if I move this, and you can see that it clearly there's an indicator there. But the problem is that we don't want to drag ourselves to, we don't want ourselves to be able to drop on top of the item itself. That means we will need to distinguish what is self. So it's pretty easy to implement in with a Pragmatic drag and drop, which is, there is a callback called can drop. Can drop basically is a callback. It returns a boolean, and when it's to indicate if the item is able to accepting the other one, and it's accepting it's accepting the source, and it returns a boolean that we need to use source.element is not equals to the element. So that means like when you about to drop, the source element shouldn't be the target. If it is, we will reject it. So that means it will not showing the indicator. Let's say now if I drag this over item 2, it's green, and back it's not green. Cool. That's pretty much the first feature we want to implement, that is showing the indicator. I guess the 200 may be too much. We just make it a small adjustments here, 100 to 200, and move it. Yep, you can see there's some small tiny green to indicate this. Yeah, pretty cool. And that's great. That's a very first small feature we have added. Let's now move into the second one. So the second feature I want to implement is highlight the column that we are going to drop. So for example, if I move this one into the column, I like the column itself to be highlighted. And to do that, we will need to make some changes in the column instead of the card. So let's go to the code. There's a column component, and yeah, similarly, we need a reference to point to the column, and then we need to register the column itself as a drop target for elements, and then we will need to listen on the drag event, and when we listen, and when they detect that that event, we will do something on the UI to change some background color basically. So the first thing will be reference is useRef, which is a HTML li element. Initially, I guess it's now, but it should be this or now, and initially is now, and then the ref is the ref here. And also in the use effect block, we will need to get that element is ref.element current, and if we don't get the element, simply return, and then we will need to return the drop target for elements and pass in the configuration here. The first one obviously is the element. Yeah, that's basically the setup we learned from the last video. So the very first one is when we say on drag leaf. That means that happens when you drag leaves the column area. So we can see console log moving away from column, and on drag enter, it happens when the drag is enter the column, move into column. And now let's say if I drag this away and into, and away into, away into, and away into, and when I drag inside this column, nothing happened, but when I leave, it will say I'm moving away, and when I move back, it's into the column. So you probably have noticed that when I inside this column, nothing triggered, and if I leave this current column, it says moving away, and if I move in, it says move into. But initially, like I'm inside the column, nothing triggered, and we will need to register that as well on drag start, and we will say drag started. And now if I drag, you see drag started. At that time, we should highlight the current column already. And if I move away, we set the flag at false. And then if I move into, we set that column as highlighted. All right. So if I drop, we should probably listen on the drop as well. If we drop, we need to listen on that change and to reset the flag basically. So let's do that in here with another state. Let's call it about to drop. We probably can copy the card thing over here. We can copy this line over and we will need to about to leave. When we want to leave, we set as false, and when it started with true, and also on drop, and we can set it to false as well. And for enter and the start, we will set it as true. Also in here, we get rid of the console logs. All right, so this is about the flag setting. And in the about to drop, we will need to change the background color. So let's do this first in a string template, and then about to drop, and if it's true, we will change background color to somewhere about the blue, bluish 100 or 200, I don't know. Let's say 100. It will be a subtle different, yeah, let's see how it goes. Now if I drag, you see the column change to blue, and if I move away from that, it's going back. And if I move into this one, the column color changed as well, and also you can see the card has a different background color set as well. So that's pretty much what we're after. That's good, but yeah, obviously the feature missing here is that we cannot drop into a empty column basically, because there is no handler here. So that means we need something to listen on the column. It's not necessarily the column itself. We can put some empty placeholder here and to let that element to response on the drop, sorry, on the drag, and we can maybe show some different color also to indicate it's happening. But yeah, that will be our next feature to implement. We have made some progress already. That's great. Now we can move the card and see the indicator that highlighting the droppable element, and also the column is changing color when we move. But yeah, obviously we need to figure out a way to drop into an empty column. In our current code, there is a column here. And when the cards if the column has some cards, we will run the card list. Otherwise, there will be an empty card holder, which is invisible at the moment. But we can make that as a drop target. So I guess you have already familiar with the steps. So firstly, we need a reference, use ref. And then make it the reference to the reference. And then we will make that as the HTML OL element or now. And initially it's now, obviously. And we use a effect that will get the, it's pretty much like a bioplate code reference.current. If the current is not available, we return. And also we need the return, the drop target for elements. We need to listen on the element. All right, so now we will need to listen on the pretty much like the card, because it is a card, but it's a placeholder. We can copy some of the code from here, undrag enter, undrag leave, and then undrop. In here, obviously we don't need this move card yet, and we don't need this either. Also, we will need the set about to drop into our holder component, and we probably don't need this object yet. And for the about to drop, we can change the background color again. Let me add this first. I will just copy this over, put it inside. Sorry, not this one. This one, and drag. Sorry, about to drop. If the yes, we will change the background color to what is grain 200 or something, right? Yeah, let's have a look at what it looks like. If it looks like about right. It should be reference to this li element, I reckon. So let's do this reference. Let's change the reference to the li instead. And obviously we need to make it HTML li list item. And also we will need to change the background color of the list item from here. Instead of the OL. And now if we drag again, yeah, you can see that small tiny bar there. We can increase the size a little bit. It's height 8, and also we need a little bit rounded corner. So let's do it again. Yep, pretty good. Now we can see that clearly. But obviously, when we move into a new card holder, it's definitely a different type of a card, because it doesn't have the ID attached to it, because it's just a placeholder. But like instead of for other cards, we move into them. The droppable target is a card, so it has the necessary information attached. But for the placeholder, it doesn't have anything. So we need a way to figure out if it's a placeholder or it is an actual card. And that leads us to our last feature to implement, which is moving the card freely across the board into anywhere we want and drop it to the new place. And luckily we have already got this move card method that accepting a card ID, target column ID, target position. That means moving this card into this column and this position. So now we need something that supervising all the drag and drop events, because it could be on a card. Sorry, when you're moving a card, it might landed to a existing card in a current column, or it could be a different column, or it could be even in a placeholder. So we need something to supervise all these events, drag and drop events in a central place, and it will be able to tell what you are dragging and where you want to drop. And in Pragmatic drag and drop, there's an API called monitoring for elements, and that's a universal event listener, and it can supervise all the or like observe all the drag and drop interactions inside your application. So we will use this one in column component or even in board. It doesn't matter. You can put it anywhere that makes sense. And then in there we can register our callbacks like on drag started, on about drop, or on drop, and then put our logic inside different callbacks. And in that common place, we can simply check what is the source, what is the target, and then correspondingly we can do something about it. We can probably put it inside a border component because it's more like up level, or we can put it in a column. It doesn't matter. I prefer to put that into a separate use effect block, and we can simply do the monitoring for elements, which is from the elements adapter. Unlike the previous two API, which is the drop target for elements and the draggable, they are all attached to a particular element. But the monitoring for elements doesn't necessarily attach to anything, because it's it's like a global event bus. It doesn't attach to any particular elements. So whenever a drag or drop happened in application, it will trigger or populate the event, and this monitor will catch that. And the most important event we want to listen in here is the onDrop. And in PDND, we can access those objects when you register the draggable or drop for elements. So basically we can do the source and the location. And because the source could be anything you are dragging, so we need to carefully check if the source is empty or it's a different thing they are dragging. So we need to firstly check if the source is the thing we are listening. And also the target, because again, this is a global monitoring. So it could be something else you don't want to listen. So we need to check that as well. So firstly, let's extract the target from the location. Location current the drop targets, maybe multiple targets, but we only want the first one. So this will be the target, and we will firstly need to check if the source is undefined, or if the target is undefined. We don't want to do anything about it. And also we need to make sure that both the source and target has data attached to them. If it doesn't have data attached, we will just ignore it, because it's definitely something else that happened when people drag and drop. If you remember that in the card application, in the card component, we initialize the card when user dragged the component. And also in a drop, it returns the data as well, which is the card. So obviously we need to listen, or we need to try to get out the card from the source or target. Let's say we have the source data from source.data and the target from the target.data, right? And if source.data doesn't exist or target data doesn't exist, we return, because obviously it's not the thing we are listening, right? Then because it's moving, and we can then call the move card, but obviously move card is from we should copy that from the card here, and in here we get this, and we don't want the move card to happen anymore in card component. We can get rid of this, and we don't need this source and target as well. So the card itself, card component is much simpler, and we don't need this move card. Do we need? Yeah, don't. And we also need to get rid of this use board and in import as well. All right. So back to the column. Now this is a sentry place that will handle the move. Obviously we need to update this. All right. So the ID is a target ID, which will from the source data.id, and the target position and the target column ID will be from the target data.column ID, and if they had that column ID, of course, and the position. So the position here will be the thing we need to talk about a little bit more. So let's say if we are moving the card into the top of the list, we can define the position as 0. And if we're moving the card at the bottom of the list, we can define that as a card length -1. And if it's anywhere else, we can use that position on the card. And that's for moving inside the column. But if you are moving into an empty column, that will be a different story, right? So we can start from the empty keys. So in here, we don't have anything attached to the element yet. So we will need to on data, sorry, it's get data. We need to return a card object. And for the ID, we just call it like placeholder or something, just enough to indicate it's a placeholder, and we don't need this, title, and we will put the position as 0, and column ID, passed in column ID, and we'll attach that to the placeholder component. And then if we go to our column and we say if the target data.id is a placeholder, and we now we need to move the card, the source card, to the target column at position 0. So it doesn't matter if it's 0 or the end of the list, because it's always empty. And now we can give it a try on the UI. So if we move the ID 4 over to this empty one and the release, it's moved. Great. Obviously we cannot move anything else yet, because it will be a different story. But yeah, that's a good start point. And for the last step, let's try to implement the feature that moving a card into a place that has a card already. So we will need to put the else branch here. So in the column now we have cards, and we will find the index of the target card. We say card, and we need to check the card ID equals to the target data.id. If the index of target is 0, which means we are moving a card to the top of the list. Otherwise, if index is the card's length -1, and there will be another branch. That means something else. So we will need a position variable here. Let's say position should be -1, and if it's let's call it target position, because that's target position. And if it's on the top of the list, we'll give it 0. And if it's the bottom of the list, we give it a -1. And if it's somewhere else, we just give it target data.position. And then at the end, we just move the card from source data.id to the target data column ID to the target position. Right? But yeah, the logic is a little bit tricky here. Just doing some calculation, like if we are moving to the top or the bottom, or even in the middle of the somewhere. And yeah, let's have a look at the result, the UI. So let's say I'm moving ID2 to the ID4, or I moved ID4 to ID1, move ID3 to ID2, or move ID2 to another column. Yeah, it looks good. And yeah, to be honest, the move card logic is a little bit complicated than I thought. I asked the ChatGPT to generate some logic for me, so it's not necessary to be correct, but I guess you get the idea of using this kind of setup. And that's pretty much what I have for the programmatic drag and drop. I hope you enjoy the series, the tutorial from the beginning to the end. You know, we from nothing to get something that we can basically enhance the user experience. We have a few interactions, you know, the drag over a ticket, over a column, over a empty column. We have covered the draggable, the drag target to for elements, and the monitoring for elements. And we see different scenarios to apply these fundamental APIs. And it's just a part of the story, obviously. And you can see in the website, there's apart from the core package, there's a separate one called optional packages. It has a few more fancy packages that can enhance your user experience even further. I guess I will just stop here on the foundation APIs introduction. That should help you to go further with this basic setup, and you can explore obviously all the optional packages yourself with the knowledge you have now. And I have put all the Git code bases in the GitHub, so feel free to download and learn on your own pace. And please share the video to your friends or whoever want to learn the drag and drop or React clean code in general. And I will see you in the next time. Bye bye.